Oh, long story. It's actually in its 42nd year, but originated at a bet, which sounds ridiculous, but someone was talking I'm not sure whether it was here or anywhere else, but with Dick Derrington, who started it all. He reckoned that fishing, angling, was a spectator sport, and he was laughed at. Of course it isn't. So he decided to put on a match to see if it was. And they had, I think it was Ladbrokes, and they came, had a one-off event of invited anglers. I think there were 40 or 50 specifically invited anglers that had a fishing contest on one of the days over the August bank holiday weekend. And from there, it grew. It was a spectator sport. So many people came to watch people fish, the different methods, the different ways. And from there it grew. It was a one-off day. Then it became 2 days, and the one day that was organised by Evesham District Anglers Association, and then the other one was an invitation for whatever. And then they decided to add a team. So for the best part of 40 years, there have been the 3 events, 3 days over the August bank holiday weekend. The days that they've had the matches have varied, but at the moment they stand that on Saturday is the Wychavon final championships, and on the Sunday is the Evesham championships, and on the Monday is the Avon team championships. So that's where we are now. It's grown and grown. We have qualifiers now from June right the way through the year. We are, in the last couple of years, we've had some qualifiers in the winter months. Obviously last winter was very unkind to us weather-wise, and the river was in flood more often than not. But we still have qualifiers almost throughout the fishing season. Evesham is known as the town of festivals now, and I believe that it was originally started quite literally by the Evesham Angling Festival. It brings tourism to the Vale of Evesham, which is very important. It is very high on our income as an area. The Vale of Evesham, we have the Blossom Festival, we have a balloon festival, we have a music festival, a drama festival, a word festival, a brass band festival. I think anything that anybody can ever do is done, the label of festival is put behind it, but quite up until very, very recently, by far the one bringing most people into the town and whatever has been the Evesham Angling Festival. But hard on our heels now is the Evesham Medieval Festival, which is held, actually today is August the 4th, which is the day of the Battle of Evesham in 1265, and it is commemorated with a medieval festival. Obviously this year, with the coronavirus pandemic, it has been stopped, and they hope to hold it in the end of September, but certainly not as big as it would have been had it been normal. That yes, it means a lot to Evesham for obvious reasons. The hotels are full, the bed and breakfasts are full, the pubs are full, and all do exceedingly well during the course of the festival weekend, particularly the Evesham Angling Festival. And of course Evesham has been renowned for its fishing for literally, well, many, many, many years. I would like to think that one of the longest running angling contests, coveted prize, is the Evesham Rose Bowl. That was started in 1947 by my father to raise funds for the Evesham local hospital, and a rose bowl was put up, and that's a match that's fished every year, and of course is now considered in the calendar for qualifiers for the Evesham Angling Festival. Well, I was born here. I was born in the Hampton Ferry house. I've lived here all my life. My father was a very keen fisherman, and obviously, yes, that runs in the family. I didn't fish until very late on in life, but my husband did and my children did. So yes, fishing is something I've always sort of done. And mostly I've worked in the cafe, and in the olden days, the good old days, people used to organise matches. Now, we used to have certain dates in the diary that were run by certain anglers. Maurice Satchwell, Bos Simmons and Priddy, various people who had tackle shops would organise a contest for their customers. But we had here at the ferry a core of perhaps 20 to 25 people that fished here all the time. And I'm talking about in the days when a large contest with big numbers was hard to find. I think there were, in this area, there were only 2 of us that had venues that would cater for 150 pegs, and that was Evesham and the Town Waters and the Ferry, and the Kidderminster AA at Worcester. They used to run the big matches. Otherwise, they were small club matches of 10, 15, 20. When we used to have lots of contests, we were always full up. My mother used to take the fishing bookings and was booked 2 years in advance. Obviously, as I grew older and helped in the business, then yes, I got to know the fishermen, got to know when they were coming and doing whatever they did. When Dick Derrington started with the Angling Festival, Dick and his wife Carol always organised it completely and utterly. They organised the festival and made a fantastic job of it. When Dick was ill and it was in danger of going out of business, the festival itself, it was picked up by, I believe the first time, Shakespeare. They sponsored it, and there were various people that would organise it and do it, and I think Dick actually at the time organised some of it. Then when he was no longer capable, DHP picked it up and did it, and of course they had all the resources to advertise it and do whatever they could there, but the actual running of the match itself was not a problem, but yes, they wanted somebody to do it, and I said I would give it a try. By then I was actually fishing myself. I belonged to a local angling club, ladies club, that we used to fish, and yes, we knew how to run a match. So actually it grew from there. I think we have improved considerably from the things that we used to do in those days. At one time we didn't have fishing pegs, regular ones. My husband used to walk along the riverbank and stick a card on the bank with a number in, and the children used to go along and pick them up as soon as the clubs were all here. It just grew, and when we started with doing this, most of the work was done by DHP, and as far as the matches were concerned, all I did was do the draw, sort out the money and do the payout and whatever. Quite often that took a long time, and there was never ever any opportunity for an angler to check the prizes, to see whether he should have won the section or not. That we hit upon the idea, I did ask Roger Mortimer if I could have some idiot boards. And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, idiot boards so that I can put the results on as they come in and do." And the very first time that we used them down on the Crown Meadow with one of the festivals, he came up to me very early in the morning, and I was standing outside, and all I was doing was putting the peg numbers on the board that were going to be fished that day. And there was a crowd of probably 30 to 40 people watching me do it. And he came up to me and he said, "I know now why you call them idiot boards." But yes, from there we've done, and now I've got names on coloured paper so that we can segregate the sections, and all we have to do now is put in the weights. I haven't come up with an idea yet of having every weight imaginable so that I could post it. I've never got round to doing anything like that. And yes, it's just grown. It's something that I enjoy doing. I love the fishermen. I love the company. I love the banter. And yes, I think we've gone pretty well as far as we can go in making everyone aware that the results are absolutely correct, because they can work them out for themselves. Several. I think the fishermen have got great sense of humour, and it's a sense of humour that you can't invent. I can remember many years ago actually doing the ferry. I don't know why I was doing the ferry, but I was doing the ferry, and one of the fishermen that I was taking over the river was Ivan Marks. And he was a truly wonderful man and a truly lovely fisherman. And as we were going over the ferry, he said, stop pulling, stop. Wondered what had happened. I thought he'd perhaps dropped something overboard or whatever. And he says, hang on a minute. He said, I fished last week. He says, well, the last time I fished, I got my reels all very muddy. So he grobbles in his bag and he picks up these reels and he actually washed them in the river, leaning over the riverbank. It was easier than climbing down the riverbank to do it. And he just washed them, swished them in the water and cleaned up his reels. And another time, again involving Ivan Marks, he came to fish a contest. Now, in those days, the White House Bend was where everybody wanted to fish. That was where the fish were. And he came in to me in the cafe in the morning, and it was probably nearly 40 years ago. And he said, have you got one of those newfangled things that mixes all things up? And I said, you mean a cake mixer? He said, no, one of the, I don't know what. I said, oh, you mean a blender? He said, yeah. He said, have you got one of those? I said, yes, I have. He said, well, could I borrow it? I thought, what is it you want to put in the blender? He said, well, I've got a flask here. He said that I put some hemp in yesterday, poured boiling water on it, and it should be cooked done now, and I would like to liquidize it. I said, okay, I can do that. So I liquidized the hemp for Ivan Marks. And then he said, and you won't tell anybody, will you? You won't tell a soul? I said, well, no. I said, what are you going to do with it? He said, I shall mix my ground bait with this liquidized hemp. Okay, fine. Now, at that particular time, we had a lot of the bottles of pop, the crates of pop that we had outside the cafe, and we were outside the cafe at the back door. And we had just had an order of pop come in, and of one of them was a lemon and lime. And it was a very vivid lime. I mean, actually now I think it looked almost sickly with this vivid, bright lime green bottle of pop. He said, can I have one of those? I said, yeah, of course you can. He said, can you take the label off? Well, I can, I suppose, but yeah. So we washed the label off, and off Ivan went with his flask of liquidized hemp and his bottle of pop under his arm. And he drew up on the White House Bend. Couldn't wait to get to his peg. And also, very close to him were Clive Smith and Ken, I've forgotten his name, but they were both brilliant anglers, and they went up there. And as he's walking up, they said to him, what's that you got there then, Ivan? You mean you haven't got any of this magic bait? No. Well, what is it? It's a horrible colour. He says, yeah, but oh, if you ain't got this, you don't stand a chance. So they go up, they go fishing. Sure enough, Ivan wins the match with 22 pounds of something of roach, and he climbs up off the riverbank, and afterwards he tells us, or tells me, he said, the only thing that I had to do, he said, was catch the first fish. He said, it didn't matter how big it was, and in actual fact it was a gudgeon. He said, but I made it splash and wish and make a noise to get it out, and that was it. He said, and those either side of me were defeated from that moment on because they hadn't got the magic bait. When he gets up from his peg and goes onto the peg, he obviously opens the bottle of pop and takes a drink from it. And they, both of them, have said a few words to him that I wouldn't care to repeat. But no, he had psyched them out of winning a match. I mean, they'd caught fish, obviously, but it was he was just one of those sort of people that could find fish, I think, in Stretchford Baths.